and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Production channel here at YouTube, and welcome to another Friday review. Today I am reviewing, let me see real quick, yes, it is the third full-length album from German heavy metal band. It is Wish to Leave from Lunar Shadow, which was released through the Italian label Cruz Del Sur Music on March 19th. Alright, so Lunar Shadow. Again, I just said these guys are from Germany, and that is Siegen, North Rhine, Westphalia? I guess that's how it is, Westphalia. Alright, I pronounced that right. Germany, and they were formed in 2014. I apologize if I butchered all of that. Okay, I apologize. And they did release their very first EP in 2015, which was titled The Triumphator. I think. Yeah, alright. Let's not fuck around too long. And then, of course, releasing their debut full-length album in 2017, which is titled Far From Light. Then in 2019, their second full-length album titled The Smokeless Fires. And finally here in 2021, it is Wish to Leave. So without further ado, let me get into my thoughts on the third full-length album from Lunar Shadow, Wish to Leave. Let's get into it. Alright, so before I really give any of my thoughts on this album, let's do a track listing rundown. We have about 6 songs here, and it all clocks in at 36 minutes and 7 seconds. So, these 6 songs are Serpent's Die, Dello Manicon. I hope I pronounced all that correctly, because trying to say this word fast is not the easiest for me. It's kind of weird name. I had to even search this track up at least on Google Translate, just so I can hear the at least the robotic pronunciation for this track. Alright, so let's move on to track number 3, which is the title, no, not the title track. It's actually titled I Will Lose You. Finally, number 4, To Dusk and I Love You. 5, and Silent Scream. Finally, the very last song, The Darkness Between the Stars. Yeah, this was a little rough, I apologize. And I'm going to apologize again, but there's your 6 songs. So, where do I really begin? Now, I am very new to Lunar Shadow. I'm not really familiar with any of their work, so this is actually my introduction to their work. And I really gotta say, just from the very first track, Serpent's Die, this is surprisingly, turns out, probably the way it begins very calm and somber with the sounds of rain, very, very loud rain, for sure, like heavy rain. I know that I'm pulling some stupid work here, but the way I'm just describing this, the way it begins, and it begins with sort of almost a very clean guitar tone, and finally it does get into the actual track, and really, throughout the most of the album, in terms of the mood, I really do get a lot of Spell vibes from these guys. I really do get it's though a more brooding, more somber Spell than usual. At times, a more proggier Spell. In this case too. I know there's probably another band that I might be thinking of, but I think Spell is from Canada is probably the best comparison I can make in terms of this album here, especially the last Spell album, Opulent Decay. I really can make some comparisons, but it really comes off as more proggier as well, and that's really very advent in the first and last song on the album. Basically, the opening and the book. And I think you referred to it as the bookend track. Basically, Serpent's Die and The Darkness Between the Stars, and especially with The Darkness Between the Stars, it really begins very clean, and it really gives you that almost progressive feel. And it does. This song does progress with each riff and composition, because after that we get almost like proto black metal style beats going blast beats here going around with this track, but then it goes in a more normal, traditional metal galloping feel. But then even towards a little part of this track, it even somewhat slows down a bit and gets a little more calmer before I think picking the pace back up. So again, they really do flirt with a lot of progginess with some of their compositions, but I don't know if I really would call this stuff progressive metal, but it really pushes the boundaries pushes the envelope to almost being close to being progressive, but at times almost not without being progressive. In many ways, probably what many people would think of Blue Oyster Cult in some case too, because they kind of were a band that really kind of flirted with progginess in some of their earlier work, but without trying to be progressive or being called progressive. That's the best sort of analogy I can summon up for at least Lunar Shadow here. But there's still plenty of mid-paced, sort of melodic rockers on this one, especially within the sort of middle strat. Everything in between Serpent's Die and the darkness between the stars. Everything again like Dilomalicon, again, not a very easy song I can pronounce in terms of its title. I can't easily pronounce, but that track is also a very sort of very faster kind of track, but it's still very melodic and still is just again more calmer, and that just comes from the guitar tone, because of it's not a very harsh or distorted or very loud guitar tone. It's not very metal sounding. It's very clean in its turn. But it still has a rawness to it that still works to the album's very atmosphere. So it works. But again, it is a more upbeat song. Same goes for like I Will Love You, and then also other songs like To Dusk and I Love You, and then and Silence Screamed. So some of these songs are very upbeat still. Again, to kind of break between the sort of the two longer songs on this one, especially the very last one, The Darkness Between the Stars, since I'm always going to name drop this one, because it is probably the biggest highlight off this one, the one that really just sticks out to me the most, really, between most of the songs on the album. This one is the longest, because it pretty much clocks in at 9 minutes and 55 seconds, so it is the longest song on the album, and it's definitely, again, a very good track. But again, Dilomalicon is a pretty good track. I Will Leave You is a very good track, and same goes for the opener, Serpent's Die. So I can't really say anything bad about here. And as far as songs that I might find weak, I guess maybe To Dusk and I Love You and Silent Scream are, I guess, might fit that. But I don't want to say they are bad tracks at all. I don't want to say anything. I don't want to diminish any of these songs to begin with. All right. It's a very interesting album, and it's one that I wish I had more time to spend with, because it's a very interesting album, and it's not one that album you have to, that I think requires one listen. I think what this album, it requires more listens, because of it. Really, it's one of those where it's going to take time to really to let it sink in, because it's a little different. And I would say, again, they're more, just a lot more intrinsic, or just very more out there compared to Spell. So that's the way I'm just describing Lunar Shadow. It's just very interesting, and this album is really, really different. So it's definitely just interesting. That's all the best way I can do to sum up this album. So really nothing, again, it's different. I do like it. I mean, to say though that I'm describing the most greatest piece of music ever written, no, it's different in that the way they're able to kind of separate in some cases from bands like Spell or so on, who go along with this sort of guitar tone or go along with this sort of concept, but at the same time they do it differently, and it comes off more organic. And the thing is, these guys have been around just as long as I think a band like Spell, though maybe just not as long though, because I think Spell had been formed at least all the way back to in like the late 2000s, because under a different name. I think it was Striker. Alright, so I don't want to babble on too long. This is still a very fun, it's a very interesting release. I don't want to say fun, because it's definitely one that really deserves some time to really listen to. We really want, it's metal for people, or at least traditional metal for those who have at least somewhat of an open mind, who are really looking to at least to broaden their musical preferences and broaden their mind a little bit. That's all. So it's a very interesting album, and that's where I'm going to leave things here. So what is my rating for this album here? Well, I'm going to give it a 9.0 out of 10. So basically a 9 out of 10. It's definitely a solid album. I don't mind this. And for my introduction to Lunar Shadow, this album's fine. I think this is a good album that definitely gives me a good idea of how interesting in terms of their creativity is. They got a lot of creativity. They got a lot of interesting ideas in some cases when it comes to the realms of traditional heavy metal. So they got some interesting stuff going on. I think this is a fine album. And so, if this does like sound, if this does sound like something that you might be interested in, I will be leaving you a link, hopefully, to their Bandcamp page, and you will definitely find that in the description box, where you can check this out and see if you like it. If there's a physical copy being sold there, you can probably can buy it from there. Again, support the artist. Support the artist. All right, with that, I hope all of you enjoyed. If you did listen to this album, again, you can leave your thoughts in the comment section below. So with that, I hope all of you enjoyed. This is Heavy Thrasher Sam out, and I'll see you all later. Take care, everyone.